Well, good morning. Today is March the 5th, 2025. It is 9:03 a.m. Commission Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Boatright?
Here.
Commissioner Erdman? Here. Commissioner Hageman?
Here.
Perfect. Slade? Commissioner Slade?
Here.
Perfect. Commissioner Baker? Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for making the trip today. As we move forward with our business, I have a friendly reminder to all that we're live streaming our open meetings for the public to view from their home or office. If you are speaking, please make sure you speak into the microphone and the microphone is on so viewers may hear what is being said. For viewers watching online, we encourage you to subscribe to MoDOT's YouTube channel at MoDOT Video for access to these meetings and more. We're going to start our meeting today with a brief safety emphasis. George Hampton, District Safety and Health Manager in the Safety and Emergency Management, is going to share with us what we need to do in case of an emergency today. So George, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Just a few safety reminders this morning. In the event of a fire, the commission director and commission secretary will exit the rear of the room and out the back of the conference room 101 to the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. The audience will exit through the doors to the lobby and out the back of the building entrance by the loading dock, and then we'll proceed to the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. An alternate exit is down the stairs and out through the main entrance. Please walk up the hill on Jefferson Street until everyone is safely out the back parking lot and a safe distance from the building and emergency response vehicles. In case there is a small fire, there is a fire extinguisher in the rear corner of the room by the AV podium. I've asked Almeida and Scott to retrieve and use the fire extinguisher if needed. In the event of a severe weather, everyone should head to the center stairwell and go down as far as possible to the interior of the building. If we must evacuate this room, please take a moment to make a note of who you are sitting next to and make sure upon your arrival to the designated safe location that your neighbor has arrived safely also. If there's a medical emergency, most people in this room are certified in CPR. Almeida and Scott will call 911 and direct emergency responders to our location at 105 West Capitol Avenue. Becky and Eric have volunteers to administer CPR. There is an AED in the hallway on this floor across from conference room 103, and Ray Shank will retrieve the AED in the event of a medical emergency. Now that we discussed how to keep safe during our meeting, we would like to provide some additional safety ideas for you folks to take home. March is severe weather season in Missouri, with our most active season in the months of March through June. This week is severe weather preparedness week, and there will be a statewide tornado drill at 11 a.m. this morning that 105 will not be participating in. But if in the event of a severe weather emergency, we will exit down the stairwell 2 flights to the basement. So you may receive National Weather Service watches and warnings from the phone app, website, and social media, but many don't understand the difference between a weather watch and a weather warning. I try to remember that if you have a watch, you have time, meaning you have time to prepare for severe weather. If you have a warning, you need to take action because severe weather is imminent and we need to take immediate action. So, all right. That's all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, George.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we move forward, Mr. Eggman is here today, but I would like to wish him a happy belated birthday. I think he
Okay.
turned 44 last week.
44. Very nice.
I'll go with it.
Commissioner.
Happy birthday to him.
Yeah. Well, we were celebrating Lester's yesterday, so thank you.
Yeah. Next, I want to review a few procedural items. I want to remind everyone that we have a public comment period, and we're pleased to offer this to every Missourian that wants to come before the commission to address an issue of concern. Any of you that would like to address the commission, please sign up before 9:30 a.m. A reminder that you will have 5 minutes for public comment or 10 minutes per subject. Next, I would like to review our abstention process. There are commissioners that because of land ownership or business interest or lawyers that may represent clients that have either some relationship coming before the commission or may have a particular or a potential or actual conflict of interest to be considered or voted upon come before the commission. The commission member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain from voting or recuse him or herself from participating in the discussion of the agenda item. If an agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or like, a commissioner may specify that particular matter and still vote on the remainder of the agenda items. This information is provided to the commission secretary by letter in advance of the meeting. The commission secretary will duly indicate the abstentions or recusals accordingly in the minutes of the meeting. Madam Secretary, have the necessary letters been prepared? Excellent. All right, so let's move into the first item on the agenda. It is an action item and it is consideration of minutes for the regular meeting on January the 8th, 2025, February 5th, 2025, and special meetings on January the 7th, 2025, and January 15th, and February 4th. So we've got a bunch of them on here. All right. Does anyone have any changes or additions? Seeing none, would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion to approve has been seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. The next business item is consideration of items on the consent agenda. Does anyone need to remove any items for further discussion? Do we have a motion and a second for approval?
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. Our next order of business is to receive committee and board reports. I serve on the audit committee along with Commissioners Slay and Baker. Today, Commissioner Slay will give the report.
There is no report for this month. The next audit committee meeting will be in June of 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. All commissioners are members of the legislative committee, and the commission's chair and vice chair serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee. Today, Commissioner Erdman will provide the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're certainly right in the thick of the legislative session right now, so my report will be a little more lengthy than usual, but I'll try to summarize as best I can. The General Assembly continues to move legislation through the process with the goal of having some proposals passed before spring break on March 17th. As a result, some proposals that promote safety and ODOT's work are progressing, which we're very happy about. These include House Bill 495, sponsored by Representative Christ of St. Louis, which is an omnibus public safety bill that includes ignition interlock language, which is part of the safety proposal on our legislative agenda this year. Another proposal, House Bill 431, sponsored by Representative Caton of Blue Springs, will help the conveyance of property and keep projects moving on schedule. At the same time, there are a number of proposals that the staff and committee are monitoring closely that could negatively impact the department and funding for transportation in Missouri. Generally, these include, and are among others, include reducing the refundable fuel tax dependent on the department's internal expenditures, give the General Assembly authority to veto our 5-year capital plan STIP, and others that would limit or restrict the commission's authority in various ways. Obviously, we will continue to work with the sponsors of these bills and other members of the General Assembly to look for compromise and solution where we may find them. Budget process is well underway, with the House Budget Committee having held its initial hearing with the department. Also recently held a hearing that allowed for public testimony, and several transportation advocates showed up in support of all modes of transportation. We certainly appreciate that and those who did testify. The House Subcommittee on Appropriations for Transportation held a hearing on Monday to mark up the budget proposal. Senate Appropriations held its initial hearing with the department last week. The commission and the department have participated in the legislative appropriations process for the past century, and we continue to do so. We continue to believe in the importance of having the governor, the General Assembly to receive, review, and revise the department's budget. We are committed to participating in that budget process. This ensures that elected officials have input in the department's expenditures and ensures transparency in all MoDOT proceedings. Since my last report, the Joint Committee on Transportation Oversight met on February 13, where MoDOT Director Hassinger presented the department's annual report. This report has been presented to the Assembly since 1998 and is a noteworthy effort that demonstrates the department's desire to communicate, be transparent, and be accountable. In his report, Director Hassinger noted the following. We have a record capital program in the 2025-29 STIP that's historic and unprecedented. The improved I-70 and Forward 44 programs to rebuild and update the interstate system are moving forward aggressively. We have an historic investment of general revenue, which we're very grateful for, to improve low-volume roads and other projects. And we have completed two major bridges, the Buck O'Neill US Highway 169 bridge over the Missouri River in Kansas City, and the Lance Corporal DePreez I-70 Missouri River Bridge in Roachport. Dr. Hassinger went on to explain the department's greatest challenge in fulfilling Missourians' expectations to operate and maintain our transportation system is having enough workers to do the work that's needed to meet those expectations. And that's why we have a proposal before the General Assembly to address that. I would remind everyone that that's all funded out of the road fund and is not a request for supplemental general revenue. Safety, of course, is our top priority, and we want to do what we can to make sure that the traveling public remains safe, and Director Hassinger continued to emphasize that objective of the department. With that, Mr. Chairman, a busy period of time we're in, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next, Commissioner Smith serves as president of the MTFC, and Commissioners Erdman and Baker are board members. Today, Commissioner Smith will provide the report.
Thank you. There is no report this month. The next meeting will be in May.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioners Erdman, Hegeman, and I serve on the Emperor's Board. Today, Commissioner Erdman will provide the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the February 21 board meeting, Todd Taylor was elected chairman of the Empress Board and Master Sergeant Wallace Ahrens was elected vice chairman. Mr. Simon highlighted a few pension-related bills that have been filed with the General Assembly. The board approved an update to the board Rule 1 through 5 regarding voting options for board elections and also approved a number of updates to the governance policies. These were generally intended to increase participation in voting for the representatives of retirees from MoDOT and the patrol. Next board meeting is scheduled for April 18 if needed. Otherwise, the board would not again meet until June 20 of 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The last report is one that I will provide. This is the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety Executive Committee report. As of Thursday, February the 28th, there have been 123 people killed in Missouri traffic crashes so far in 2025. This is a 2% increase compared to this time last year. As a reminder, traffic fatalities have been down in Missouri each of the past 2 years, and we are hopeful to see that trend continue throughout 2025. As we all look forward to the spring season, MoDOT and the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety will be ramping up highway safety messaging, particularly in regard to work zones and Missouri's hands-free law. With historic levels of construction taking place, we want to remind all motorists to slow down and put your phone down in work zones. This time of the year also signals the start of the motorcycle season for many. Motorcyclist fatalities decreased by more than 20% last year, and the coalition wants to remind everyone who rides to make the smart choice to always wear a helmet so these positive results can continue. Finally, the coalition has been working with AAA and Cambridge Mobile Telematics to continue promoting the Buckle Up Phone Down Challenge amongst Missouri high schools. The team just wrapped up the first ever safest driver contest for students. The winning schools and their respective safest drivers will be recognized at AAA's annual Distracted Driving Awareness Day later this month. And this concludes my report. Moving on into a non-action item, which is MoDOT Director's Report. I'm going to kick it over to Director Hassan. So,
Good
the
morning.
floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and everybody assembled. I have a few things I'd like to highlight for you today. First of all, we've made an addition to our executive team. So I'd like Eric, our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, come up and make that announcement.
Thank you, Director. Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm very pleased this morning to be able to introduce, not a stranger to you, but Mark Corkin as our new Assistant Chief Engineer. As you know, Mark currently served as the District Engineer in the Southeast, but Mark has been in, I think, 6 of our 7 districts over his career in different roles through construction, involved with design, build, and bridge inspection, and leading many efforts. So really thrilled to be able to bring him onto the executive team to help us deliver this record-sized program, and I'm really excited to have Mark. There'll be a little transition time, so I don't want you in the Southeast, we're just not going to rip him out, but we'll make the transition. It'll take us a little time to find his replacement down there, but very excited to introduce Mark to you this morning as the new Assistant Chief Engineer.
So, we do every year the AASHTO Washington briefing, and as a result of a lot of the activity that was going on here in Jefferson City, I couldn't attend because we needed to attend to things like budgets and the legislature. So Eric pinch hit for me at the Washington briefing, so I thought it'd be appropriate to let him give you kind of a brief update on kind of what the tenor is in Washington, D.C. and what's in front of us here.
Thank you very much. So yes, Patrick Flesch and I were able to spend a week in DC. Some of the high points of, we were able to talk with all of our congressional districts. We made it to everybody's office. We were able to actually speak with 2 members directly. Congressman Alford, Congressman Burleson were gracious enough to spend some time with us to talk. So some of the things that we provided to all the offices, we shared with them a map of the current projects going on in their district, the condensed STIP that lists all the projects. We also shared the unfunded needs list and expressed that as there's an opportunity for funding for either designated projects or such, that when they use that list, those are ones that we can be most successful with, because those projects we have some information on, know something about. So that many of the offices were familiar with that, so we were able to do that. But for some of our new ones, we were able to do a little education there as well. And also to talk about the importance of the next federal bill. As we have some new congressmen and some new staffers, we're able to give them a contact within our department to reach out. So we were able to talk about that. But some of the priorities we're able to highlight is that the formula funding, that part of the bill, is what really works best for us in Missouri. And some of the things we're able to highlight is that's what puts jobs to work the quickest. As we take those and turn those into projects that turn into jobs that employ Missourians, that turn into an asset that the state uses to drive the economy, that is one way to demonstrate putting that federal money to work the quickest. And that's what we've made our history on here. We were able to share that, in the past 10 years, over 4,000 projects we've delivered on time and under budget. And that's that track record of being able to take that funding, work it through the system, and turn it into real results. And that was a good conversation to have with all of our congressional staff, and the importance of the basic formula funding. Now, we were also, thanks to Congressman Graves, we were able to meet with his key staff, but he also was able to get the T&I staff that are charged with crafting this next bill. So we were able to spend considerable time with his staff and the T&I staff talking about the priorities for Missouri and how this works, and also some of the challenges in the past bills, what's worked well and what maybe hasn't worked exactly as well as people had hoped. So those were really, really productive meetings. While we were there, it was the first day of work for Secretary Duffy. So we were there the first day he was confirmed. One of the challenges with Secretary Duffy at that time was we were there shortly after the tragic crash on the Potomac of the helicopter and commercial airliner. So he was a little rightfully taken with some other priorities. And most of his staff at that point has not been named or appointed. So there's a lot of transition going on. The other thing that, as we were in DC at that time, was dominating the conversation, is realizing they're 4 months into a federal year without a federal budget. They should be crafting the next one, and they haven't reconciled the current one. So there was a lot of things going on related to that. So it's a little, I'll say, odd to be talking about the transportation bill, which expires in about 15 months, when they're still in the middle of trying to resolve the federal budget. So a lot of staff that we visit with were key on helping us understand some of the things there, as we talked about some of those pressures that are on this. So it was a really good visit to be able to get with all the staff, make some context, but also to help them understand we want to be a resource for them as they craft the next bill, to answer specific questions and how it works and what's worked best for Missouri. So that was very, very well spent time. I'd be glad to take any questions you have.
Recently, we've heard of some transportation grants that aren't obligated being held. And I wonder what your evaluation is, if we have risk to any of those, and if so, kind of what the magnitude and where that might lie.
Great. That's a great question. Because while we were there, we're in this transition period, and things are, you'll see things in the news about things that are held paused. But we're seeing many of those things kind of resolve themselves as the new people get in place. As we're working with our federal partners here in Jeff City, that was one of the things that we expressed while we were there in DC, was the importance of resolving those type of matters quickly and getting back to routine business. Some of the grants, our risk here at MoDOT, I think, is fairly low. Some of the ones that are slow to come about are some very specialized areas, electric vehicles being one of them. We had just started the process. We were getting ready to go out with our proposal on that. So we hadn't gotten very far into that on the electric vehicles. But the bread and butter of what we do here, those are being resolved. And we're able to work with the congressional districts to help us in getting that basic things resolved and back up and going.
And I would say, some of our local communities that have grants, they are really nervous about that. And I think, at MoDOT, we have enough critical mass that it really isn't that big of a deal. But for local communities that get a grant, those are concerning, and they're really just going to have to wait. There's really no other option. You can ask the question of your congressional delegation and keep in touch, but I think it's just going to be a while before some of that stuff gets resolved. And I think the other thing that has come to light just in the last couple of days actually is there is a effort in Congress to move the reauthorization quicker. We were thinking that at AASHTO we'd go to the spring meeting and talk about our position and then vote on it at the fall meeting. I just got a note yesterday that said we need to accelerate that timeline because the discussion about the reauthorization is going to happen on a quicker time frame. I think that's good news. And I think we all need to, I've said it a lot, but having a relationship with our congressional delegation is really important. And having Congressman Graves as the chair of the T&I committee is really important. So us supporting him is one of the things that Pam and her team are working really hard to do. And I think that'll pay dividends for everybody, but for Missouri too. So we're thrilled with that. So
Thank you.
I had a couple other items here. One of the other things, going back to the more local part of our process, we held our annual planning partner meeting with our regional partners across the state. We had about 130 people represented. All of our planning partners were represented. And we discussed the ongoing STIP development process and where we were. We talked about those legislatively designated projects of I-70 and I-44. And then we talked a lot about the local program, which we've made great progress. I see Ashley sitting back there in the audience. She has been pivotal in moving those local programs and getting those funds obligated. So we're on the right path to help liaison with our local governments and make sure that federal investment gets put on the ground. Another thing that we're doing, and we updated the planning partners on, is we are doing our kind of 5-year renewal of our long-range transportation plan. our rail and freight plan, and our strategic highway safety plan. These are all more kind of what I would call directional documents. It's not about projects. It's more about direction and where we see things go in 20 years from now and making sure that our process aligns with where we think we need to be. So that process is ongoing, and we'll be updating the planning partners and the commission as we go through that process. But that's a pretty important process, and we're just thrilled that our planning partners were there. And I see Sarah sitting here, one of our planning partners. So we had a great discussion, and we're right in the middle of the STIP process. So our districts have turned in all their work, and now our team in Jefferson City is going to do all their quality checks, and we'll be bringing you a draft STIP in May, I think would be the time you'll see that. So we're excited to keep that going. I also want to highlight, we've had several employees that have been recognized with the Governor's Awards of Distinction. Last month, we talked about one of our highway safety employees that won the January State Team Member of the Month. So just on the heels of that, we had a group of our safety and maintenance employees that were awarded with the State Team Member Award of Distinction in Safety category. So our District Safety and Health Manager, Gary McClary, State Safety Coordinator, Evan Adrian, our MMS Project Director, Michael Middleton, and our MMS Administrator, Tommy Cottle, and Assistant Maintenance Liaison, Randall Ipock, were recognized for the work they did to create our safety dashboards that our teams use to see how they're doing. If you haven't seen that, it's a pretty interesting tool that we're using to try to keep our employees safe. And we didn't bring them here today because they're going to be brought to Jefferson City this summer for a celebration that the governor and his staff will, recognize these folks. But I thought we should inform you of that so you know that we're being recognized at that level. And then also in the same group, our motorist assist operator, Ken Cassaway, received the Missouri State Team Member Award of Distinction for heroism. If you remember, the commission recognized him several months ago for his heroic efforts to pin a wrong-way motorist against the wall before they did something really bad. So Ken will also be recognized at that ceremony this summer, but it just shows you the quality of folks that we have and the amazing stuff they do just day in and day out. And I would reckon to guess that when you ask them, they say, "Oh, I was just doing my job." Well, other people would beg to differ. They're doing amazing things. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is maybe a little difficult for me. But this is Linda Horn's last commission meeting. So for over 3 decades, Linda has been a cornerstone of the communication effort at MoDOT. And I just thought if you indulge me, I'm going to share a little bit of her history. So believe it or not, about 35 years ago, MoDOT had no communication professionals in the organization. Because you all know that engineers are so good at communicating, right?
Phenomenal.
But, probably 30 some years ago, the decision was made that we needed some help. Linda's going, "Yeah, you need a lot of help." And we brought on some people to help us with communicating better. Linda was one of the first to do that. She came to work in Jefferson City and worked on really helping us communicate. And Linda, would you come up here and just stand here so we can embarrass you? By the way, come up to the podium here. But really working on how we communicate with ourselves. And I dug this out of my filing cabinet. Linda was the editor in chief, right? Of
Major contributor.
major
sure.
contributor to the highway news. So we used to have a newspaper at MoDOT. There was an internal circulation to keep people up to date about what's going on. So this is where Linda's career started. And she would travel the state with the chief engineer at the time, and we did chat with the chief, and she would try to, communicate about what's going on at MoDOT. And it wasn't too long after that that we realized that we needed to have better communication on our front line. We talk about retail MoDOT and projects and operations and things like that. So Linda went to St. Louis as one of the first folks to be really a frontline communicator in St. Louis, and really set the stage for that to be kind of a mode of operation at MoDOT. So she was once again the trailblazer that, cut the way for all of us. And so now we have communication directors in every district and staff to do that hard work. And Linda was the first to do that. So we are once again cutting the way. Then later in her career, she decided we were going to do this major mega project in St. Louis, the first design build. And really, honestly, it was more of a communication project than a highway project. We decided we were going to close the road, major interstate with, 100, maybe 80,000 cars, 120,000 cars a day. And we were going to make people like it. And so Linda's job was really to make sure that we were publicly communicating what we were doing. And I would say set the bar for major project, not only communication, but also consensus building, making sure that the public was informed, not only before the project, but during the project. And she was committed to that project for 5 years of her career. And I would say probably did the master class on how to do that, and is really used as an example around the country, not just by MoDOT. And then did a few other things in the interim, and then we finally got her to come and lead our communications division in MoDOT, and has done a phenomenal job of really making that happen and making this team one of the best in the country. I will always say that Linda has made a huge difference in many of our professionals' careers and how they communicate and made them better. I know personally she has done that for me multiple times. Her voice is in my head a lot. So we're just honored that Linda has given us so many years of her career, and her fingerprint, her voice is in many of our heads, and her fingerprints are all over this department in many ways that nobody even knows. So Linda, congratulations on a fabulous career.
Thank you.
You can say something if you want.
You
We're
want to do the picture first?
We're gonna take a picture.
We can do the picture. We'll do the picture and then I'll.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report, so let Linda have the last word. She always does get the last word.
Ms.
Even-
Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My very first day, I came to a commission meeting. I had graduated from Mizzou Journalism School 2 weeks after I turned 22 years old, and I walked into this room. And I know as commissioners how the language is like, what are we even talking about in here when you're at your first meeting or so? And I definitely was like, holy cow, where did I come to work? I don't understand anything. And nearly 34 years later, I mean, it's just been the career of a lifetime. And I think the most important thing that I wanted to say today is that, public service isn't cut out for everybody. But I think when you dedicate your life to public service at the local, the state, or the federal level, you feel like you're giving back to the community and you end up being so enriched. And I've been so enriched by so many of you in this room and all the relationships. And it's hard to leave, but I know it's the right thing to do. So I just want to say thank you very much for the support. Thank you for the support of communications. We are a little bit of the unsung heroes behind the scenes, in your heads, in your presentations, in your talking points. And hopefully we help our engineers especially figure out ways to communicate so that the public can understand, so our employees can understand, and people see the amazing things that this organization does for the citizens of Missouri every day. So it's been an honor, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that the public service is certainly one of the most fulfilling things that you can do. And certainly been a blessing to have you, Miss Linda. The nerdy engineer in me, you can have a perfect project. You can have all of the data to support it. You can have all the money in place. You can have everything moving forward, but if you don't communicate that well, that project can go nowhere. So to your point, I think it's really key to this point that you're leaving with an historic step on the table. And I think the reason that we've gotten to that point is good communication. And so the team that you built, I know you've got some great folks coming in behind you. So really proud of all the work that you've done statewide, and we're certainly going to miss you. So with that, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Francis Slay.
Hi.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment myself about Linda. I had the pleasure of working around and with Linda for many years while I was mayor of St. Louis, and I can tell you that she always has been and still is an outstanding professional. Wonderful to work with, represented this organization extremely well, very talented, and I just wanted to give her a very special thank you for all your work and wish you the very best in your future. Thanks again.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. We are going to move into the MoDOT presentations. The first item is an action item. It's consideration of bids for transportation improvements. Danica Stovall-Taylor, Assistant State Design Engineer, will present them for our consideration. Floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Chairman Boatright, Commissioners, and Director Hassinger. For the February 21st, 2025 bid opening, MoDOT received 74 bids on 24 calls. We recommend to award all calls to the lowest bidder, except for call F01 in the St. Louis District and call G04 in the Southwest District. We recommend rejection of call G04 due to excessive bids per section 102.15A of the Missouri Standard Specification for Highway Construction. We recommend the award of call F01 be contingent upon receiving additional funding. Also, for call D01 from our September 20th, 2024 bid opening, we recommend the award of this call to E&C Bridge LLC. This concludes our recommendations.
Thank you, Danica. Any questions, comments for Danica? Seeing none, do we have a motion, a second to approve? Motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do you have a budget update for us?
I do. Today's awards are a total of 93.1 million, which is 14.6 million under budget. And today's awards result in a state fiscal year 2025 award total to date of 1.8 billion, which is a savings of 4.1% under budget on 1.9 billion worth of work.
That's outstanding. Is that's our biggest?
Getting close.
That's incredible. We've still got a few months to go.
We do.
So really incredible. Danica, thank you and your team, and really excited time we're in. So
You know, I just wanted to make a quick observation, given where we are in the legislative session. This is incredible project work that's being done. And it's made possible because of the regional planning process we have that establishes the 5-year step that allows the vending and bidding community to have the certainty to make bids that allows this work to go forward. And if there's one thing in Missouri that I'm exceedingly proud of at our company, I deal with 7 different state DOTs. It is we have a best of class regional planning process, and it's worth defending. And it's producing the results that we see today.
absolutely. No, that's a great point to make. Any other questions, comments? Danica, thank you again. Really appreciate it. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Scenic Byways, U.S. Bicycle Route System, outdoor advertising, and junkyards. Over to you, Ms. Brenda Harris. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director, Madam Secretary. I am Brenda Harris. I also serve as the State Scenic Byway Coordinator. I will be speaking on behalf of Scenic Byways. I also have Gidget Kestner. She is the Policy and Innovations Engineer. She'll be speaking on Bike Ped. And Jenny Hall, she's the Outdoor Advertising Manager as well as Junkyards. She will be speaking on outdoor advertising and junkyards. The Scenic Road Program has been in America since the early 1900s, when motorized transportation became more common and the construction of roads made it easier to travel. In the first half of the century, the first scenic roads did not exist as a result of any organized program, but rather scenic travel corridors were developed in bits and pieces across the nation. Official byways support began in 1965 with President Lyndon Johnson, who created the national program known as the Highway Beautification Act, or Lady Bird's Bill. This national act called for the control of outdoor advertising, junkyards, and scenic byway designations. It took until 1990 for the Missouri General Assembly to pass state statute which gave the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission the authority to create a state system of scenic byways. This statute was quickly followed by other federal bills that noted the scenic byway program and provided funding at the federal level, such as ICE-T, T21, Safety Lou. However, the byway program has been unfunded in Missouri state level since the early 2000s. So these local groups, these scenic organizations, are the ones who provide the funding for these byway programs. This is a list of the current byways in Missouri in which MoDOT has control over. The state byways are roads and highways with intrinsic qualities owned by state, federal, or local governments and have been designated by MoDOT and in some cases promoted by other state governments. Through official declaration, these byways have outlined intrinsic qualities that are required under the statute. The Missouri Byway Program is a statewide partnership designed to provide recreational, economical, and educational benefits to Missourians living across the scenic route, while also promoting Missouri's beautiful landscape. Processes and procedures within the state statute require MoDOT to confirm that a byway applicant has met all the necessary requirements in order for the commission to take official action and approve or reject the proposed designation. Over the past several years, the commission has inducted 12 scenic routes across Missouri. There are other byways identified across the state. However, they did not run through the official byway process. Process of becoming a scenic byway begins with an application submitted to the Missouri Department of Transportation, at which time they review and go over the specific application requirements and must confirm that at least two of the 6 intrinsic qualities have been met. MoDOT's role, as I indicated, is to facilitate the submittal and guide the applicant through the process. We also obtain local government approval, public approval, which is set out in the CSR or the Code of State Regulations. Zoning restrictions can, however, minimize the scenic byways as areas identified as commercial and industrial do not qualify as a scenic route. After approval from the local governments, the public, the Scenic Byway Advisory Committee, which is made up of 12 other Missouri state governmental agencies, makes a recommendation to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for a designation. Currently, MoDOT has in our hands and going through the process a second proposal for a scenic byway that will extend the Ozark Scenic Byway.
The U.S. Bicycle Route System is a national network of officially designated numbers and signed routes that use existing roads, trails, and facilities appropriate for bicycles. This may help. The nationwide plan, which will eventually reach 50,000 miles, currently has 23,186 miles as of November of 2024. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, otherwise known as AASHTO, and Adventure Cycling signed a memorandum of understanding in February of 2021, formalizing a longstanding partnership to create a national bicycle route network. Each year, twice a year, the AASHTO Special Committee on U.S. Route Numbering accepts applications for USBR considerations. This committee is currently chaired by Rex Vines, who is the Arkansas DOT Deputy Director and Chief Engineer. AASHTO requires applications be submitted by the state departments and must include letters of support from adjoining states. As suggested by the partnership, this endeavor is largely driven by cyclist enthusiasts and local bicycle groups. In Missouri, the Missouri Bicycle and Pedestrian Federation does the brunt of the outreach and planning, which the Missouri Department of Transportation then utilizes for the application. Prior to submitting an application, the department ensures letters of support from the adjoining states and all local jurisdictions and entities along the path are in place. So when the application then results in a USBR designation, MoDOT is committed to indicate that route on our state map. Prior to fall of 2024, Missouri had 2 U.S. bicycle routes, USBR 76 and USBR 66, which are largely east-west routes as shown on the 2021 official state map. USBR 76, Missouri's first U.S. bicycle route, established in May of 2013, follows a portion of the Trans-America Bike Route. Shown in green on the map insert, it's approximately 348 miles long, beginning at the Missouri-Kansas state line at Missouri Route 126, progressing to the Missouri-Illinois state line where US 51 crosses the Mississippi River just west of Chester, Illinois, which is between Perryville and St. Genevieve, Missouri. Missouri USBR 66, which was approved in May of 2018, more or less follows along historic Route 66. It's shown in blue on the map insert and is approximately 343 miles long, beginning at the Missouri-Kansas state line just west of Joplin, progressing to the Missouri-Illinois state line at the Chain of Rocks Bridge, which is a pedestrian bicycle bridge that crosses the Mississippi River. Missouri was actually the first state to attain the designation for USBR 66. California and Oklahoma followed with 2 other sections in 2021 and 2022, respectively. USBR 51 was added to the system in the fall of 2024 as Missouri's 3rd U.S. bicycle route. Missouri USBR 51 is a north-south route beginning at US 69 on the Missouri Iowa state line and ending at US 71 on the Missouri-Arkansas state line, where it connects to USBR 51 in Arkansas. This route utilizes Missouri state and local roadways and incorporates established trails and facilities across the state. It completes a significant central length of the National Corridor Plan for USBR 51, which is planned to stretch from New Orleans, Louisiana, into Minnesota. Missouri Bicycle and Pedestrian Federation is currently requesting MoDOT apply for an additional US bicycle route in April of 2025. The proposed USBR 251 would provide a more direct option, which is approximately 90 miles long from Springfield to the Arkansas state line, and a 25-mile long spur from Bolivar to Willard. Missouri's portion of USBR 251 would connect to an 11-mile segment in Arkansas that they're planning at this to potentially apply for in April of 2025 as well. MoDOT will be supplying a letter of support for their efforts. So, in continued support of expanding non-motorized transportation alternatives, actively sought and supported by Missouri citizens, MoDOT plans to move forward with the application after review and assurance that all of the necessary letters of support are on hand.
Hey, good morning. The outdoor advertising section is responsible for the regulation and control of outdoor advertising in junkyards under the Highway Beautification Act of 1965. This is to promote highway safety, convenience, and enjoyment of highway travel while preserving the natural scenic beauty of highways and adjacent areas. Under the Act, states are required to achieve effective control through enacting legislation, entering into a federal-state agreement, and enforcing state control. Enforcement authority was given to state departments of transportation. Outdoor advertising, also referred to as off-premise advertising, includes signs located on private property that advertise for or direct the public to something other than what's located on that property. Signs that are considered on-premise are not regulated by the department. Under federal law, the department is required to regulate and control outdoor advertising along the national highway system, the interstate system, and highways classified as federal aid primary as of 1991, June 1 of 1991. For this, they took a snapshot of the routes that were regulated, and these routes will continue to be regulated even when ownership is transferred to a city or a county. 9,143 center lane miles are regulated for outdoor advertising, with 10,592 permitted signs along these routes. Under Missouri revised statutes enacted in 2012, there's a moratorium of new outdoor advertising permits along sections of highway scheduled for construction or reconstruction, where funding for right-of-way acquisition is approved by the commission under the STIP. This moratorium halts new permits from being issued throughout the duration of the project. For junkyards, a junkyard doesn't have to be a commercial or industrial activity. It can be any place where junk is kept or stored. Junk can be any type of scrap metal, material, waste, or debris, including dismantled or wrecked vehicles. Properties within 1,000 feet of a controlled route that meet the definition of a junkyard must be screened unless they are located in a zoned industrial area. Screening can be done through a fence, earth berm, natural surroundings, or other plantings. The department regulates the national highway system, the interstate system, and the state primary system for junkyards. There's 8,953 center lane miles regulated, with about 248 junkyards identified along these routes. Failure to provide effective control of outdoor advertising could cause the state to lose up to 10% of its annual share of federal construction money. For junkyards, this would be a 7% loss. The department works cooperatively with Federal Highway Administration to ensure requirements are are met to avoid a loss of funding. And this concludes our presentation. If we could answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Not a question, just kind of a comment, Brenda. And it just show the responsibility that has, when you think of this outdoor advertising, we don't really think of something like roads, bridges and stuff, but that just goes to show. I appreciate you guys playing a role. Anyway, that's all right. But anyway, I appreciate you guys.
Commissioner Slay?
Yes, yeah, I was having a little trouble hearing just recently here the last comment by the commissioner, but I appreciate first of all the presentation. I want to thank Brenda, Gidget, and Jenny for all the work and the presentation as well. The responsibilities that you and your team have may not immediately come to mind, when we think about MoDOT, but it does show the breadth of what the organization actually does. And I really appreciate the insight into the department's role in regulating these programs and how they intertwine with each other and the Missouri rights of way. So thank you and your team. I appreciate your work, and it's always good to hear from you on the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. Commissioner Hageman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jenny, I appreciate the information too, as well as Brenda and Gidget. Thank you. Do have a question for Jenny regarding of junkyards, which I find it interesting that Missouri DOT regulates junkyards. I assume this is for aesthetic purposes. We don't get into like hazard mitigation with junkyards or anything like that, do we? My assumption is that would be a DNR opportunity to regulate. Am I correct, or do we get into that as well?
No, you are correct. It is just for screening and beautification purposes.
Good. I am happy that that's my assumption is correct. Thank you. That's the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Commissioner Hageman. Director?
Yeah, I thought it was timely, what all the commissioners have said. People don't realize the breadth of the work that we do. And these folks that do this job, everybody is not always agreeable. They do a fabulous job of sometimes taking pretty, conflicts and resolving them in a good way. So, but we have a lot of customers that don't want to be regulated on junkyards and outdoor advertising and those kind of things. So they do a tough job. And I just thought it was also timely. They're all kind of interconnected, but as the team mentioned, we are currently in the review of a extension of the Scenic Byway, the Ozark Run. We have a proposal in front of us to send a letter of support for the addition of the bike route on 251. But these are all really economic benefit tools, right? The people that want these want them because they bring tourism. The highways look good. Communities want those things. And so that's the reason that we're doing them. And these folks just do an excellent job of doing that.
Any other questions, comments? Director, thank you. Brenda, Gidget, Jenny, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so moving into the third item on the agenda, it's a non-action item, speed limit guidelines and considerations. John Nelson, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. My name's John Nelson. I'm the State Highway Safety and Traffic Engineer for MoDOT. And speaking of things that are not always agreeable, it's a pleasure to be here this morning to share about the department's process for reviewing and establishing speed limits on state roads throughout Missouri. I'm joined this morning by Ray Shank. He's one of our traffic liaison engineers in our division. And in just a little bit, Ray will provide a more detailed look at that process and some of the factors that we take into consideration when contemplating what it is that constitutes an appropriate speed limit. Before he does that, I'd like to take just a few minutes to provide some greater context around speed limits and what it is we're trying to accomplish when it comes to governing speeds on the roadways. And I'd like to start by simply posing this question: why limit speed? I mean, why have speed limits at all? Why not just let everyone drive at whatever speed they feel comfortable that day, or whatever speed they feel like traveling on that particular day on their journey? As you can imagine, there's some pretty obvious reasons for why we would want to manage speeds, perhaps some that are not as obvious. But in any case, what I hope we successfully communicate today is how one of the ways that the department fulfills its mission to provide a transportation system that is both safe and reliable is by properly managing speeds. So briefly, I'd like to share just kind of three foundational principles for setting speed limits. First, when we set a speed limit, one of our goals is to accommodate a uniform and efficient flow of traffic. This is part of what it means to provide a transportation system that is reliable. We want our customers to know approximately how long it should take them to get from point A to point B, to get to their destination. And the more we can provide uniformity across various drivers on the highway system, the more likely we're able to keep the system operating as it was intended and designed to do. So speed limits, they help provide this uniformity. Second, Missouri is a diverse state, right? Not all roads are the same. Not all roadways have the same features or the same landscape. Sometimes when we're designing and constructing roads, we may not have the opportunity to build exactly what we would like. Right, there may be curves or hills, or there may be narrow sections of right-of-way that have to be accommodated in the design. These are constraints. So in other words, when these roads are designed, they're typically designed to operate at a certain speed based on those field conditions and those real-world circumstances. Speed limits, again, they help us ensure that the traveling public know what speed it is that they can reasonably navigate that roadway and remain safe. Which brings me to third and most important, is the safety of all road users is our top priority. So regardless of who's using the system or where they're heading, we want all of our users to reach their destination safely. And if there's one thing we're certain of, it's that speed plays a significant role in both the frequency and the severity of crashes. And sometimes the difference between a crash and no crash, the difference between an injury and no injury at all, is just a matter of speed.
People have started to think speeding isn't a big deal. It's fine to go a little over. But is it really? Here are two vehicles. One going the speed limit, one going 10 over. Both drivers brake here. The same vehicles, but one will be able to stop in time and one won't. When you speed, it takes longer to stop, no matter how great you are at driving. So you see, speeding actually is a big deal. Simple actions save lives.
So that's just one of several different public service announcements we help put out there to try to educate Missourians. And I know most of you are already familiar with this, but if you're familiar with our highway safety messaging at all, you're probably familiar with the four messages that we repeat regularly: buckle up, phone down, slow down, and drive sober. And while all four of these issues have a significant impact on highway safety, excessive speed is consistently, year after year, the number one contributing factor to fatal traffic crashes in Missouri. On average, approximately 35% of the fatalities in Missouri involve excessive speed, and in more recent years, that's been as high as 40%. In fact, exceeding the speed limit or driving too fast for conditions combined contribute to almost twice as many traffic fatalities in Missouri as alcohol and drugs. I want to reiterate, both of those issues are substantial. They're both important, but I think this sobering statistic, it just provides some framework for just how important speed is when it comes to traffic safety and the likelihood of surviving a crash. And if you're a person who's using the transportation system as a pedestrian or a bicyclist or some other form of non-motorized transportation, these speeds are even more critical. Research from USDOT indicates that pedestrians who are struck by a vehicle at 20 miles per hour have an 80% chance of survival. At 40 miles per hour, that chance of survival drops to just 20%. Now, the impacts of excessive traffic speeds, they extend throughout the nation, and unfortunately, this is not a new trend. History has shown how increasing speeds can be expected to result in an increased number of traffic fatalities. And along those lines, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety suggested for every 5-mile-an-hour increase in speed, the fatality rate can be expected to increase by 8.5%. Now, does this imply that all speed limits should be lowered or that an individual speed limit shouldn't be raised? Well, not necessarily. Remember, there are many other considerations when establishing speed limits: liability, the efficiency, and roadway designs. So sometimes we may lower speed limits. Sometimes we may leave them as there are. And on occasion, we will even raise a speed limit. But we never do so in a vacuum. And any time a speed limit change is being contemplated, we're always considering the safety features, other factors, and the impacts are expected to have on the overall performance of the system. So with that said, I would like to turn it over to Ray. He's going to provide a little bit more detail about the Commission's authority to establish speed limits and the department's process for doing so.
Thank you, John, for outlining the importance of setting appropriate speed limits and its responsibility has been entrusted to the Commission. As is outlined in Missouri's revised statute, section 304.010. This statute establishes maximum speed limits for interstates, freeways, expressways, leather routes, and interstate roads with a maximum threshold of 70 miles per hour. I'd like to point out that these thresholds also vary between urban and rural settings. The Commission has the authority to set higher or lower speed limits if recommended by MoDOT. Authorize the chief engineer or their designee to approve speed limits on the state highway system. Policies and processes have been established for consistent application of setting speed limits, which are typically initiated by speed limit inquiries. This could be when MoDOT completes a project that changes the context of a roadway, such as a project that constructs additional lanes or changes the roadway's alignment. Cities and counties also frequently request MoDOT to review speed limits, which is appropriate as the roadway environment can change over time, such as with new development or changes with land use. Once these requests are received, speed studies are performed. Our staff will go out into the field to review the specific site in question and collect a sample of individual vehicle speed data. With this data, the prevailing speed of free-flowing traffic is determined, which is quantified as the 85th percentile speed, which is the point at which 85% of vehicles are traveling at or below. After the prevailing speed is set, reductions based on location-specific details are applied. This could include crash history, pedestrian use, on-street parking, adjacent development, and this aligns with drivers' expectations, as when things are more densely spaced together with businesses or pedestrian activity, most drivers understand they should be slowing down. Now, this methodology helps inform what speed limits should be considered, but MoDOT, again, does not make these decisions in a vacuum. Considerations for local support, the roadway environment, such as transition areas between a high-speed rural roadway and then as they approach into a low-speed environment through town, consistency and support of our enforcement partners are all factors as it relates to setting speed limits. For example, if a city requests a speed study with the intent to lower speed and the speed study doesn't necessarily support it, a reduction may still be considered based on some of these factors. Speaking about locals, cities and counties may set speed limits on state routes within their areas by ordinance with the approval of the Commission. There may be instances where the Commission would void these ordinances if such the speed limit is not necessarily designed to expedite traffic flow, or if its primary purpose is to produce revenue for the city. Essentially, we're trying to avoid creating speed traps over the improving returning speed. Along these same lines, if speed was too low, with the intent of improving safety can lead to unintended consequences. This can create frustration amongst drivers and to aggressive driving behaviors and increase the perception that the posted speed limit is legit and reducing driver compliance. As such, driver behavior must be considered as part of the process. As John spoke about previously, speaking is the number one factor. Roadway fatalities in Missouri. Speed limits will be one piece of this decision as the driver makes relate to how fast they will travel. Other factors could include the roadway, how wide are the lanes, is there a shoulder, is it curvy, or actually how fast does that driver feel comfortable and safely driving. Then also, you have to consider the driver's circumstances. Are they running late for that big meeting? Can they save time by trying to go a little faster? This gets this, right? Will I get or will I get a ticket? So all those factors are at play. So how do we get drivers to ultimately travel at the same speeds? That's where we rely on some of our partnerships. Participate in a variety of public efforts to educate the public of excessive speeding, such as the video that John shared previously. And our enforcement partners, through their active engagement, can help deter speeding behaviors. Further, our partners engage with the public and along with MoDOT, identify improvements to align the roadway's design to match the needs of the community and their desired speed. In summary, speed has a direct impact on safety. Speed limits can influence this impact. MoDOT has an established process for evaluating speed limits and consistent application across the state. Speed limits are tailored to that specific roadway's context and characteristics. I'd like to invite John back up to answer any questions.
John, Ray, thank you. Any questions, comments? Oh, Commissioner Hageman, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, John and Ray, sure appreciate the presentation. Can you all hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I sure appreciate the presentation. You know, there's a lot of factors that go into setting a speed limit, and I appreciate the very thoughtful process that we go through to do that, to address the safety concerns that you presented out there. You know, sometimes, like, as you said, sometimes setting the speed limit too low is not the right answer either. You know, and so you know, it frustrates people. It delays traffic. So, not an envious job that you fellas do, but certainly an important one. And really appreciate the effort and the thought that goes into working with our communities and working for the state to keep the traffic flowing, but do it in a safe fashion. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Sir.
Commissioner Baker.
I'd like to kind of say thank you for the work that you do. I don't actually feel like it's critically important. And when finding the risks of speeding out of the find those risk factors. Thank you for sharing the specific data points. I don't know if they're all on the slide deck today, but I'd like to put a t-shirt actually. See people on the road say, "Look." That's the end. Just keep sharing with everyone because it's a difference one time. It's very good.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Commissioner Erdman.
Yeah, I just want to echo comments that Commissioner Hageman and Baker made. This is a duty of the commission on our behalf. You do this very professionally. Particularly understand how you occasionally it might be frustrating to constituents when they're not allowed to go as fast as they might like. I think that's probably pretty easy to see for most people. Less obvious, maybe, is when a local community to reduce a speed limit because of development or pedestrian or other circumstances that might cause them to want to lower it. We've spent a lot of time today talking about why we have the upper speed limits, but recently we've heard more, at least more from communities who want to consider slightly lowering the speed due to development, the number of entryways to a state highway as it goes through town. Some cases, there's a pedestrian interest. And I guess these requests are reviewed similarly through a speed study. I was pleased to see that adjacent development and density is a criteria. Recently, we had a presentation from a community in Cooper County, south of Boonville, on their desire to because of a school. I know the department took quick action to take some alerts and make sure that the school activity was protected in a quick manner, maybe quicker than could be done by analyzing a reduction in the speed. As recently as yesterday, I was approached by a community in Lafayette County wanting a similar speed reduction done. I would have to say my experience has been that the department maybe isn't as quick to consider those maybe as I would think they would when you look at a stretch of highway and your common sense just tells you, wow, this has got a lot going on. Maybe we should slow down. And I don't know that we're going to resolve this today, but I think it's very important to take into account the concerns of a local community because they live there, they know, they're familiar with what the traffic's doing. And I suspect this may be something we'll hear more and more of going forward. And I would hope that you would be exceedingly sensitive to local input on something like this.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing that. I do think there's been an increase probably in the interest level of locals to look at things like that. And certainly broad public support for that in the community is one of those things that we compare closely.
I have two things. The first one is a nerdy engineering question that I will ask offline. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the 85th percentile and that prevailing speed when you have a posted speed limit. I really have trouble with that. So I'd love to talk to you guys offline on that. Second thing, see that we have this ability for cities and counties to regulate a speed within their limits by ordinance, but that has to come through the commission for approval. I don't recall over my 4.5 years having any of those. Is that what do we still have those coming in, or is that something that's kind of not been there the last several years?
There really haven't been a lot recently. So to clarify, that's only if it's on the state highway system. So if it's their locally owned road, they can set that speed limit as they like. But yeah, they want to change an existing speed limit on our road within their city limits. They can do that by ordinance with approval of the commission. But yeah, I'm trying to think. We really haven't had a lot within the city limits in the last couple of years that would have met that criteria, but those would still come to the department.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting path that I did not know existed. And yeah, some of these communities that are wanting to make some changes, I think that's the path for them to go down to maybe get those speed limits reduced. Director, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I think so. So you could delegate that to a local community and just say, do whatever you want. We have chosen, as commissions in the past have chosen to say, we're going to review those and make sure that they're consistent. Because I think the fear is if you just said every community do what you want, which you could do that. You would have such a patchwork quilt of speed limits that driver expectation, they wouldn't have any idea what to expect.
Sure.
And you would run into, I'm going to lower it to 25 because we want, our school or our business community. But the reality is nobody's going to drive that. And so you create this kind of expectation of speed that's not realistic. And then people get hurt and killed.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that's a fundamental question for the commission. In past commissions, they've said, we're going to try to make sure that that comes back to us to make sure that these cities aren't just doing,
Right.
off the cuff, hey, let's just lower the speed limit, because that would happen. We know it would happen. So I think that, but that is a fundamental question. You could, do that. I would recommend against that, just because we would have a patchwork quilt of stuff that wouldn't be good for the public in the long run.
The thing that I've taken away from this commission and the others that I've served with is we really have focused on having that driver experience throughout the state to be consistent. So I think that part is important too. The thing that has really kind of been a point that I think we should take a look at is having a pathway to be able to listen to communities and have a path to where they can at least be heard and move towards making adjustments where they make sense. And until today, I did not know this path through the city and county ordinance existed. And I think that is a great path to be able to address some of these community issues throughout the state while still
Commission review.
Yes.
We're not going to give that up. Just to put you at ease.
And just so you know, like the previous presentation, they're not a local city or county. They're an unincorporated community, so they don't fall under that part of the statute.
Right.
So there's
the county.
The county could, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So no, this is great. I really appreciate y'all putting this together today because this is super helpful for us to know. And is there anything else?
Well, based on this little conversation we've had, I think where part of the breakdown is at the district level, communities are having dialogue with people within the district. And some of those people just aren't a subject matter expert on this issue. And I think maybe they just aren't as aware of this issue maybe as we are here at the central level. And I know of a couple instances where a local community had conversation with someone who really wasn't involved in setting speed limits from a district office. And I wonder if some education on all of this through the district offices might be beneficial in this regard.
And that's something also that could be used throughout our planning and regional partners throughout the state too. I think that's another opportunity to get this type of info out. But looks like we have a great path here. So like I said, I appreciate you guys giving us the update and thank you so much for everything that you do. John, I get to hear from you quite often now. Yeah. So on the roadway or the Coalition for Roadway Safety. Yeah. So
we appreciate the opportunity, and Mr. Chairman, we're happy to follow up on any of the nerdy engineering details later.
Want to dig into that part to where I can have a little better understanding. So thanks so much again. Okay. So now we're moving into the fourth item on the agenda, which is an action item. Consideration of proposals for the Kissinger. Help me out. Haysinger. Okay. It's tough for Southeast Missouri to pronounce things. I'm telling you. For Haysinger Basin Bridge Bundle Design Build Project, Eric Schroeder, you want to kick this off and introduce the group?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yeah, we're very proud today to bring forward the proposals that we've received. The team has been working for months on this, and today we'll be presenting to you the final with a recommendation of all the details that go with the Haysinger Bridge Bundle. This is located in the Southwest District in the northern part of it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon, our project director. She will give you the details.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director Hessinger, Madam Secretary. I'm a soft speaker, so I apologize. So Haysinger Basin Bridge Bundle, KB3, it's a little bit easier to say it that way. I'm very, very happy to be here today to present the team's recommendation for award to the apparent best value proposal. Okay, so the purpose of this project, the purpose of the bundle is to replace or rehabilitate poor condition bridges in the Case-Singer Basin Regional Planning Commission area. It's difficult for me to say too. This bundle contains up to 23 bridges. 14 of those are primary bridges. These were mandatory and had to be included in the bundle. 11 of those are required placements, with 3 of those being redeck as a minimum treatment. We also had 9 alternate bridges, and these are locations where the proposals could kind of elect which ones they wanted to select to maximize the value. In this group, we had 4 required replacements and 5 with redecks as a minimum treatment. And so the 7-county area is located in the northern part of the Southwest District. It's a rural area. It is home to about 80 poor condition bridges currently. So our map inset there shows the location of the bridges in our bundle, with the green stars being the primary bridges and the yellow ovals being alternate. So our project team, the KB3 design build team, is comprised of a talented group of folks, both internally to MoDOT as well as with our consultant engineer. Guiding us along the way was MoDOT's design build coordinator, Dave Simmons. We also work closely with our chief counsel's office, along with Federal Highway Administration. All right, so project goals. Number 1, we wanted to safely deliver the project within the program budget. Number 2, we want to maximize the number of locations to be addressed while providing quality, low maintenance structures and roadway approaches. We wanted to minimize the impacts to the public through diligent construction efforts, flexibility in scheduling, and proactive communication. We wanted to deliver the project utilizing a diverse workforce, and we wanted to do all of this on or before November 15th of 2027. So a quick look at the budget. So the total program budget is $37.9 million. Included in that is our internal and consultant engineering for the preliminary and construction engineering cost, our right-of-way acquisition, utilities, contingencies, and stipends. But the biggest part of that, the biggest lump, is the $28.2 million design build contract. This is a fixed price, best value contract that includes all of our design and construction for the bridges. Sorry, the clicker's working a little slower. There we go. I got too far. Apologize. Okay. All right. So the DBU goals established for this project were 10% construction activities, 12% for professional services. Workforce goals were 5.6% minorities per trade, 6.9% females per trade, and we had 2 construction on the job training slots. Okay, so procurement schedule, just kind of a look back at where we started and where we are today. So our project advertisement to industry was back in July. We announced our shortlist teams in September. Final proposals were due February 7th, and then here today, presenting to you for consideration of award. So last month, we received 2 responsive proposals, and they were reviewed in 3 categories. The first being bridge definition. This was a summary of which bridges were selected and the treatment that they were proposing. Second category was bridge quality and longevity, and this really looked at the technical elements of their bridge and roadway design, and then maintenance of traffic, and this looked at how they were going to safely maintain traffic while also coordinating and communicating with the local communities and stakeholders. Yeah, there we go. Afraid to click it too many times. So the first team we're going to look at here is our Capital with Horner and Schifrin team. In their proposal, they had 18 structures. They had 1 redeck, 3 superstructure replacements, 12 full replacements, and 2 bridge eliminations. And this was just removing 2 locations off of our national bridge inventory by proposing a structure that was really smaller than what would be required to be on the inventory. So in this case, they proposed culverts to replace the existing structures. All of their bridges have full depth cast in place decks. They propose a reduction in the number of intermediate bends at 7 locations. They propose the use of concrete or steel girders, and for the steel girders, they were proposing either weathering steel or galvanized steel, some high quality materials there. They were proposing to replace a little bit less than 91,000 square feet of existing bridge deck, and they had 7 bridges with lane closure durations under 100 days. Our second proposing team was Henry Sapp & Sons with Bartlett West. Their proposal included 20 structures, 4 redecks, 2 superstructure replacements, 12 full replacements, and also the 2 bridge eliminations. All of their bridges had full depth cast in place decks. They had a reduction in the number of intermediate bends at 9 locations. They also proposed concrete or steel girders with weathering steel or painting the existing girder to be used in place. They had a little bit over 100,000 square feet of existing bridge they were proposing to replace, and they had 12 bridges with lane closure durations under 100 days. So the KB3 team would like to recommend awarding the apparent best value proposal to the Henry Sapp & Sons team. So Henry Sapp & Sons with Bartlett & West. Again, their proposal included 20 locations. Excuse me. That was the 2 locations removed from the National Bridge Inventory. They had 11 low maintenance concrete structures. 4 of those were single span bridges. They had 3 low maintenance steel structures and 4 redecks, which is extending the life expectancy of the existing structure by about 50 years. And again, just a little over 100,000 square feet of existing bridge deck replaced. So looking at the location of their 20 bridges, these are 20 poor condition bridges. Again, this area has 80 currently, so we're knocking out a quarter of those with this one project. 4 of those are currently 1-lane bridges. We have 2 fracture critical truss bridges in this bundle, 9 load posted bridges, and again, we've got those 2 bridge eliminations. So have a quick look at some of the design build value that this process brings to the Southwest District. We've got those 20 bridges replaced or rehabbed for an added value of about $4.5 million. Also kind of looking at the 20 bridges, this streamline procurement and delivery process is allowing us to get those 20 bridges rehabbed or replaced in less than 3 years. Okay, and with that, I would like to request that the commission approve our recommendation of the Henry Sapp & Sons team as the best value proposer and authorize the director, chief engineer, chief financial officer, or their designee to negotiate and execute a contract with the Henry Sapp & Sons team and approve the payment of a $160,000 stipend to the unsuccessful proposing team. Right,
Awesome.
so
Thank you so much. Yes. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion for approval.
Chairman, I move successful.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Got 2 ayes on the screen there, so the motion carries. Thank you and your team again. Oh yeah, Commissioner Baker, go right ahead.
This was rather ambitious.
No doubt. No, that's spot on.
So a lot of value. So it's just very interesting.
That's spot on, Commissioner Baker. You know, with these design build projects, we really get great bang for our buck here in Missouri. So it's tremendous. Thank you and your team very much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, so moving into commission items, we do have an action item. We have the election of a chair and a vice chair. And with that, from the perspective of seniority, our most senior commissioner, Mr. Greg Smith, has pulled his name out of the hat for any leadership positions. So he will not be considered. And with that, we would entertain any motions for the election of a chair and a vice chair for the next year.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to.
So we have a motion for Commissioner Erdman to be the chair. Do we have a motion for the vice chair position?
Chairman, I think that vice chair.
Well, thank you for that motion there, Commissioner Smith. Any other motions from the floor? Oh, we have a motion, a second. Do we need to roll call or do? Good question. Oh, okay. So let's go ahead and roll call. So, aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Slade.
Aye.
Then I'll vote for Commissioner Hageman votes aye.
Commissioner Slade.
Aye.
And Commissioner Baker. Aye.
All ayes. All right. Well, I'm going to pass the gavel to our new chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We may be switching seats, but really there's not a lot of change you can expect. I just want to comment on what a pleasure it has been working with my partner, Dustin Boatwright. We had a pretty eventful year. Our partnership was airtight. Every single thing that came to our attention, we approached as a team. I continue to be amazed at Dustin's ability to remember detail. It's remarkable. And if you haven't had the opportunity to experience it, it's really something phenomenal. I tend to be more of a concept guy, but we make a great team. I want to express my gratitude to the commission. For those of you who don't know, this is kind of a perfunctory rotation that we do under the statute. The way it works is the most senior member gets the prerogative. And if he chooses to decline, it works its way down in seniority. And the only requirement is that we be of differing political parties, as we were confirmed by the Missouri Senate. I was confirmed as a Republican. Dustin was confirmed as an independent. So today we're simply rotating seats, which has kind of been the practice of the commission. And we look forward to our other commission members having the opportunity to fulfill this responsibility. But thanks to Dustin, an eventful year, exceedingly well done. And we're very grateful for your leadership. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Members of the public who did not schedule a presentation before the commission may speak to the commission on transportation-related issues by having signed in at the registration desk by 9:30 a.m. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person, 10 minutes per topic. Madam Secretary, do we have any signed up for public comment? Okay, it looks like we do. Looks like Sarah signed up first. Sarah is the Executive Director of the Ozarks Regional Planning Commission and a frequent visitor to our meetings. Sarah, we'd welcome your comments.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for the partnership on I-44. Traffic is rapidly growing and we're continuing to watch it grow. And through our regional planning process and prioritization, we had selected that as our #1 priority. And there was funding programmed in this DIP for a small section of 6-lane. And we had gone to the legislature asking for pavement rebuild and a complete interchange rebuild, but we got so much more. So you guys we just really appreciate your work and your partnership and the ability to deliver a project within the budget year that the legislature put the funding in, I think is huge in building trust and just proving how good you are at delivering projects. So I just wanted to thank you, Commission, and thank you, Director Hassinger, because that work, I believe, is starting this next week, and we're just really excited.
Thank you. Any comment?
Well, not a comment, just thank you, sir. We appreciate the leadership that you team. There's no I in team. Appreciate you very much.
Sorry, Chairman. So I'm glad you pointed out the execution piece, because that a lot of times gets overlooked when you look at projects. We look at all of the planning that goes into it. We look at the funding to get it there. But if you miss the key point, which is the execution piece, that makes everybody not look good. And what this team here at MoDOT does is they execute better than any other DOT in the country. So thank you for making that point. Thank you for being here each month. And we really appreciate what you do in the Springfield area. Your leadership is extremely valuable and means a lot to us as a commission. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Also signing in for public comment, I see Arnie is here today. I just want to say we've appreciated your comments in the past, and we'll hear again today. And thanks for some of the things you pointed out about our secretarial and ministerial obligations to the public.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. This morning's weather was an interesting drive to the state capitol. Montgomery County, when I hit Montgomery County from Warren County, flying snow was held with low visibility. In my opinion, I saw no response from MoDOT crews this morning. My question to the commission and director is, where were the crews at 7 a.m. this morning when it was critically needed during rush hour traffic? I only saw 2 plow trucks from Callaway County to the state capitol on US 54. US 54 was treacherous, unsafe, and really should have been shut down this morning. I saw 7 slide-offs into ditches and no response from MoDOT to help those people. I had to get the captain on the highway patrol involved, and hopefully some crews have helped those victims or those motorists out of the ditches and safely to their homes. Where were the majority of crews sent to the state's western counties? I think there needs to be some answers for accountability. I praised in the past responses, but this morning I think somebody dropped the ball in a few key locations in key counties that I traveled and personally experienced, and also have some photographs because I pulled off to the side and took those photographs. Unless I'm looking in the wrong area of the commission's website, the commission secretary has not this month posted all the meeting documents of the meeting packet that has been provided to you commissioners 7 days before this meeting. Under chapter 610.023, 610.024, the revised state statutes of Missouri, I'm requesting the commission meeting packet for today, March 5th, 2025. Yesterday, the commission held a closed meeting under chapter 610.021 of the revised state statutes. Under chapter 610.022, I'm requesting all results, all discussions, individual votes by commissioners, and actions taken by the commission, either for personnel, contract, or negotiations,
or other type actions behind the closed doors away from the public for March 4th, 2025. My verbal requests are allowable under the Sunshine Law, under the interpretation of court cases throughout Missouri's appellate court and the Missouri Supreme Court, and the determination by our Attorney General Bailey. Political sign removal in MoDOT Rose is a big thing on my concern. We have the April up and coming election, and I brought to the concern of the Eastern District in Chesterfield for the St. Louis region. And I've called in numerous times in the last few weeks of a sign at Old Missouri 79 and Missouri 79 of a large political sign in the row, and it's been ignored. We have the Constitution that says it's illegal. We have state statutes that say it's illegal. We have promulgated rules that this commission adopted with approval of the Secretary of State that says you cannot have any political signage or advertising in the right-of-way owned by MoDOT. But yet these signs are allowed to be there. You have a strict enforcement, and I ask that there be timely removal of these purposely placed signs to send candidates a message that it will not be tolerated by MoDOT. These are publicly owned lands. We as citizens deserve to have those lands free of clutter and debris. Billboards and advertising presentation today. I'd like to draw the commission's attention and the staff's attention to HB 272 that was discussed a week ago, Tuesday, at the House Transportation Committee. It's offered by Representative Collardloff, and the bill waives the current $200 outdoor advertising fee and biannual inspection fee for certain highway signs under section 226.550 of the revised state statutes of Missouri for a sign displayed by a landowner who also is the permit holder and owns the business advertised on the sign if the business has a physical location within 700 feet of the sign. So they're asking that there be no maintenance done or no inspection process. And I urge the legislative response team, the lobbyists, the spokesman for the department to adamantly oppose this bill as I oppose it to Transportation Committee of the House. It's about public safety, the motorizing public, maintenance, liability insurance. And I'd like to get into some other legislation in next month's meeting as I'm running out of time. Is there any way to stop that? I'll try to sum it up and move on here. There is some type of disconnect between the General Assembly and the Commission and MoDOT. On February 25th, Ed Hassinger showed up to both the Senate Appropriations Committee and the House Transportation Committee, where I also was. He was in the hot seat with state representatives and state senators who were not happy campers. There's a large tension and stress between MoDOT and the members of the General Assembly. We saw that clearly at public hearings on the House Transportation Committee on HB 745, towing of commercial vehicles. The representatives do not have any faith or trust in this department's administration, which is the third largest state department for income and spending. And then I also want to talk about the public hearing process. I'll bring that up in next month. It needs to be revamped. But the bottom line is we need to come up with a way to enhance communication. We need to change the methods of delivery from MoDOT to the General Assembly and to county commissioners and other elected officials. We need to be open and transparent, unlike testimony given before the state House members, which I invite you to view at www.house.mo.gov. Go to media, archive video, Transportation Committee hearing from February 25th, 2025. Now is the exact time to check our grudges, our stubbornness, our stiffness, our power, and our country club mentality of luncheons and fancy dinners. You as commissioners need to open up your ears, process the citizens and elected officials' thoughts in testimony, and build an outstanding Missouri transportation system. We need to have the highly maintained, proactive of our roadways, our interstates, and our expressways, and we need to do it together as a team. We need to come to overcome the communication gap And I don't know what the right word is. I don't know if it's hate, dissent, distrust, but there's a problem between the director and the General Assembly and county commissioners all throughout our state. And we need to bridge that gap, and we need to do the repair starting right here today.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment. Your requests have been duly noted, and we'll provide that response. Commissioner comment?
Yes, I certainly appreciate you making the trip here today and providing your perspective. I do want to point out that it is a perspective. It's not, it is not emboldened in truth on everything that you had to say. And I'll just say this, when it comes to, I'm a results guy. So I look at results at the end of the day, not so much as what it takes to get there. And with any organization, no organization is perfect. There's things that happen over time that you listen, you learn, and you get better at. And that's what we charge the staff. That's what the commission is looking at, is how do we execute? How do we get better? How do we do those things for Missouri? And that's what we focus on. So to the point about the relationship with the General Assembly, I hear your words. However, you look at a fuel tax on the user fee passed a few years ago, 3 years ago now. You fast forward to the general revenue funding that's been passed in each one of the last 3 legislative sessions. And while I hear the words that you are speaking, the reality of the situation is a majority of the folks next door do not have the perception that you share. So again, thank you for your time and your presentation today. We look forward to seeing you again next month. But I just want to make very clear, this is your perception that you're providing.
It's all on video. It's all on video.
We're not going to go any further
Yeah.
on the topic, but thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate the time you spend up here on the Capitol, because I know you're busy next door doing lots of things. So thank you.
This concludes the public comment session. Thank you again for your time. Your requests have been noted. With that, typically we end each meeting where we like to provide each commissioner with the opportunity to share any of their personal reflections, concerns, or comments they may have. Today, I'm going to kind of work up and start with Commissioner Baker. Well,
best first.
Let's do it for sure. Just kidding.
It's on.
Just a brief comment. I'm always amazed every meeting that we have of the wide variety of topics that we have and the huge universe of responsibilities that MoDOT has to count and react each and every day. I never would have known that we would have a presentation on junkyard regulation. We do, and I understand why. From it has to be a depth projects efficiently is amazing. The finding of all the other things, customer service. I think each and every and it is not unnoticed.
thank you. Commissioner Hageman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, for running the meeting most of the time. Really do, I gotta echo what Commissioner Baker said. You really appreciate the review of the outdoor advertising and the junkyard regulations that we get to do, which it always bewilders me why we get a chance to do that, but that's the federal government for you back in the 60s. So also really appreciated the discussion around speed limits and how the process we go to doing that and moving forward. That I really appreciate the time, the thought, the effort that the MoDOT puts into setting speed limits, around the state, working with the communities and engaging with them, but also keeping in mind the need for traffic to flow in a reasonable fashion. So it's a tough balancing act, and I think we've got some great professionals that are out there doing that. So again, I really thank them for bringing that forth and their efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Slay.
Yes, I just want to just reiterate, I know what I've talked about in the past, but I think it's worth saying again is I'm always impressed with the talent, the professionalism, and the effectiveness of the MoDOT team. And, you know, the presentations that are made here at these meetings gives us a chance to see firsthand and to hear firsthand from very talented and professional MoDOT employees who do an outstanding job with a huge responsibility. So I just want to thank the entire MoDOT team for your great work, and thank Ed Hassinger for his tremendous leadership as well.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Boatright. Anything further?
I've done a lot of talking today, so no, just to reiterate, I mean, super proud of this team, the work that we're getting done statewide. Let's continue to execute. And, you know, we're building infrastructure. We are recapitalizing infrastructure for our next generations. And it's a very exciting time to be a part of this, and lots of positive things moving down the pipeline. So really excited for what the future holds, and I'll yield back.
Thank you. The Dean of the Commission, Dean Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, it's good to be here today. It's good to have the crowd here that we've got. I was very disappointed to see that the tallies were up 2% already for this year. Two of those tallies were friends of mine, family members that I know. Their life. We've just got to keep pounding on that. Slow down, buckle up, don't drive impaired, and maybe we can correct this and get back to where we were kind of last year. But anyway, with that being said, Shannon team, thank you. It's great to see us get some stuff in Southwest. How do you say that? K-Singer? K-Singer.
KB3.
Okay. Anyway, it's good. Dustin, thank you for your leadership as chair. The last year, you've done an outstanding job. I know you'll continue to do an outstanding job. Mr. Chairman, thank you for stepping up and taking this role. I know with your retirement coming soon, get time to here. So Jennifer, thank you. A lot of things for you to do. So with that, thank you. Everybody, drive safe, buckle up, phone down. Stacy, I didn't see you.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Smith. He actually leaked something that I announced to the commission over the weekend. No, that's okay. I announced my retirement as of April 1st from CPKC, where I had the honor and privilege of 28 years of service in the rail industry. And while I'm have some mixed emotions about retiring, I am looking forward to having the time to be a fully engaged chairman, work very closely with Vice Chairman Boatright, members of the commission. The only other observation I want to make is how much I enjoy working with Dustin Boatright. I really enjoy that, and I will look forward to continue. We may be in different seats, but for the most part, this partnership will continue. And we are very proud of the work that the department does on our behalf. Before we adjourn, I'd like to note that our next meeting is scheduled for April 2nd, 2025. That meeting will be here in Jefferson City. With that, I think we have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. We stand adjourned.